Hello, Professor Kellenhofer here again. I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about the two concepts that are very important to Greek literature, in particular Homer, and that is xenia, Xenia, and kleos. We'll start with xenia. Xenia was a guest-host relationship, a sacred hospitality relationship wherein anyone in the ancient world of Greece could expect safe harbor while traveling. And the way it worked was something like this. Imagine a world where there were no police forces and you could not move from place to place without enduring terrible, terrible crime. It would slow things down. It would make it difficult for a society to get anywhere, and difficult for a society to advance and grow. And so, as this problem stopped humanity in a great amount of ways, a solution from the religious sector came forward, and that was that the great god Zeus, who was a powerful god, the head of all gods in the Greek pantheon, was in charge of Xenia, and it was up to him to harm those who did not offer hospitality when they should. It was up to him to punish those who did not offer hospitality when they should. So, if you were a traveler and it was getting dark, you could knock on a person's door, and before you were even asked your name or your purpose, you were given food, shelter, clothing, a gift, all the best hospitality you could possibly want, even before you were asked your own name. In this way, people were guaranteed their anonymity and they were guaranteed their safety. And this was to be reciprocated by any and all people. Now, it wasn't that if you were the poorest person, you could knock on the richest person's door and expect to then live a lavish lifestyle, but you would be given quarters equal to your station. So perhaps if you were poor and you stopped at a rich person's house, you would be given the stables or something like that. But those who did not follow the tenets of Xenia endured terrible hardship from Zeus, and this is one of the reasons that the Greeks, after the Trojan War, endure terrible hardships. The Odyssey, a book we're not reading in this class, is about a 10-year journey of Odysseus and his way into getting home. On his way back to Ithaca, he is tortured and delayed and forced into terrible situation after terrible situation. And this is not random. The reason that Odysseus is going through this difficulty is that he broke the tenets of Xenia in creating the Trojan horse. The idea was his, and thus the punishment is his, and thus he's kept away from his home for years because of his participation in the Trojan horse. So Xenia is the most important concept. One of the most important concepts you need to understand the Iliad. Characters here are bound by this concept, and even in the war relationship between Troy and Greece, the Trojans were required to behave in a specific way, and so were the Greeks. Another very important concept is kleos, K-L-E-O-S, and kleos was a concept of glory. It meant glory in battle, it meant fame. And as characters looked to become more than what they were, as people looked to become more than just mere humans, they went to war in order to garner this concept of glory, this concept of kleos. Achilles is not at Troy because he is interested in securing Helen back for Menelaus. Achilles has gone to war in order to do heroic deeds and to become more and more famous, because they believe that as you garnered more glory, more of this kleos, and you became more and more famous, the more opportunities you had after your life to move from the boring, dull land of the dead into a greater version of the afterlife. So kleos, glory, is extremely important, and you'll see as you go through that the majority of the characters in the Iliad are fighting simply to garner this kleos. You'll see often that two characters come together, and before they battle, they have to announce who they are. I am Sarpedon, I am Diomedes, I am whomever. And that's because of kleos. If you don't tell somebody who you are, then they don't know whether it's honorable to fight you. So there's no reason to fight. And thus the captains, the named people, the great fighters of the war, are constantly having to discuss things with their enemies, find out who their enemies are, and then decide whether or not they should engage or should not engage in combat based on the value of the person whom they're about to fight. Thus, in a lot of ways, this story breaks down into the Kleos of Achilles and the Kleos of Hector. Hector and Achilles, being the two greatest fighters on the field, are waiting to fight each other. That is essentially the motivation for Achilles before his rage takes over and stops him. So Kleos, glory, an important feature, an important cultural concept here. And xenia as also an important cultural concept for you to learn and understand. As always, if you have any questions, please give me a call. Thank you very much for taking the course.